And now back to Bobby Likas Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likas.
And welcome back to this segment of Bobby Likas Car Clinic. Glad to have you tune in. 888 Car Clinic is the number. We'll go directly to the phones, and then I want to finish the information that I shared, some of which with you earlier was about engine coolant. You know, why yellow or orange or green. It's interesting, and it's something that you should know, because if you've got green, use green. If your car comes with yellow, use yellow. But in the big scheme of things now, color doesn't matter, and that's why you should know, because there are occasions where you won't have yellow coolant available. And if that's the case, it is perfectly okay to mix the green. You don't want to do that as a habit, but I'll tell you why after this call. Ray, welcome. Thanks for holding. Welcome to Bobby Likas Car Clinic.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a 99 Chevy pickup. It's a 350, I think.
Okay.
And if I push the gas all the way to the floor, it totally bogs down. So I never do that. But if I need to get up to speed or go around some, I just ease it on, regularly.
Right.
But if I stop it to the floor, it just totally bogs down.
Have you had any services performed, and I don't use the word tune-up because that doesn't apply, but like, for instance, a fuel filter. How many miles since the car has been serviced? How many miles on the car?
180,000 on it. I got it used.
So really, you don't really have a history of this vehicle?
No, sir. No, sir.
Well, there are so many, Ray, I can dazzle you with a lot of jargon, and I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Here's what I recommend. Let's look at the basics. And what are the basics? The basics would be, number one, what's required when you open the throttle? Take a deep breath.
Fuel.
Engine, fuel. Exactly. You got it. You got it. So should you go put a fuel pump on it? No. The first thing you should do is have a fuel pressure test performed at the same time, and this is not spending a lot of money. At the same time, you should, out of a course of maintenance, and maintenance only. And maintenance means that if you spend your hard-earned dollars for parts and labor to perform a specific service on your vehicle, you do that under the scheduled maintenance column, not under the, I hope it fixes this is going to fix my car problem. However, you would do that anyway, whether or not you had a problem. And so I always leaned toward and recommend the obvious maintenance services, because if I recommend changing a fuel filter, which I'm going to do, and I'm doing,
yes, sir,
and that fixes your problem, not only am I your hero, but you didn't spend $100 having something tested. So you see where I'm going? So
yes, sir,
here's what I want you to do. And I hope you're prepared to follow this advice.
Yes, sir.
Have the fuel filter removed. Make sure, and replaced. Make sure that the old gas from the old filter is poured into a container.
Yes,
and that
sir.
container can be the bottom half of a milk jug. It doesn't have to be a sophisticated beaker. But what you want to do, you want that technician to, and this is not something that you should do, you want that technician to pour that fuel out of that filter backwards from what it normally flows, because otherwise you're just getting what's filtered out one end, which is the outlet. You want to know what comes out of the inlet, and therefore when you pour the fuel out of the filter, the last, you'll have 3 or 4 cc's of gasoline. That's not a big deal. What you want to see is the last 100 drops, because that's where the stuff starts to come out that's trapped in there. And you'll notice that it's going to be black. And if you notice there are metal flakes, like you pan for gold, you'll know that the fuel pump is going away. And then you'll know just by replacing the fuel filter, the current is like performing a blood test on your fuel system to include the heart pump, which is a fuel pump. You got it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I got it.
Okay. It's a really great, we do that. We do that universally when we have a vehicle that's in for a regular service with no problems. We put a fuel filter. We don't put a fuel filter and toss the old one. We use the fuel out of the old one to determine what's in the gas tank, because that's an easy way without pulling the gas down. You got it?
Okay, I got it, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very,
You're welcome,
very much.
Ray. Call me Bobby.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, Bobby.
Bye-bye. Yes, sir. Thank you, Matt. Ray. We'll go to Matt. Let's take a call from Matt in South Dakota. Matt, welcome to Bobby Likas Car Clinic. Glad to have you join us.
Hello.
Hello. You're on the air, sir.
Sounds good. It's my called here back in October, November. Got a couple 05 Chevy pickups with low oil pressure.
Okay.
He told me about the replacing the O-ring between the oil pump and the pickup tube,
Yes, sir.
and it was that O-ring. But I went ahead and changed the oil pump. I had to pull the water pump and everything anyways to get to everything.
Right.
But I went ahead and changed that oil pump. But that O-ring was so hard and crusted, it wasn't making a good seal to suck that oil up.
Yeah, that's a universal problem. And you have an 05 Chevy pickup with a V8. Boy, that oil pump is so, Matt, it's really hard to get to, and you have to pull the harmonic balancer, and you have to pull the front of the engine. That's a big job. That's why I recommended the O-ring first, because you may have saved some money, but it's okay if you're on the other side and you've got your pressure back and all is well, then good for you. I'm glad you reached out to me.
I just wanted to thank you for your advice and tell you I like your show. I listen to it every chance I get.
Well, thank you. Where do you live, sir?
South Dakota.
What's the weather like this morning?
Oh, about 18 degrees, sunny,
Well,
a little bit of snow on the ground.
Well, drive safely, and congratulations on getting on the other side of your repair. And I thank you so much for calling me back. I appreciate that feedback.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Be safe.
You too. Bye.
And folks, that's a common problem, which is the O-ring that seals the pickup tube, the oil pickup tube that plugs into the block that feeds the oil pump. And therein lies a little lesson. And if you've got a V8 GM product, certain years, and you have an oil pressure problem that's erratic, low oil pressure, that will most often take care of the problem. And it's a little green O-ring that's the size of a quarter in the outside diameter, about that size. And that O-ring gets hard, it gets brittle, and so the oil pump literally sucks air because that O-ring is above the level of the oil. So I don't know if you've ever smoked, but if you've ever smoked and had a hole in the side of the cigarette, nothing happens. When you draw on the cigarette, that's the same thing for an oil pump. On the other side of the coin, if you've got sludge in the engine, you can try to pull oil all you want and pump it, but that sludge is going to block it. So clean oil, new oil is important. Okay, 888 Car Clinic, still time to get your call in. Kim will take your call, put you in the queue, and I'd love to hear from you at 888-227-2546. I want to share with you the rest of the information about coolants. I've already talked about the why yellow or orange. I've already talked about the 50-50 mixture, and there's corrosion inhibitors and dyes. Most antifreeze coolants contain, it's called there's EG and PG. And EG is ethylene glycol. It's a slightly sweet-smelling chemical, and it's poisonous to animals, by the way, and to humans. And then there's propylene glycol. So EG is ethylene glycol. PG is propylene glycol, which is less hazardous, and it's also used, but both are still toxic when they're drained and should be disposed of properly. Both of those glycols raise the boiling point of the coolant and lower the freezing point. And, of course, just for you to know, the glycol fluid by itself doesn't carry heat away effectively. That's why you have to have water. That's what water's for. And that's why diluting antifreeze and coolant with water is so important. A 50-50 mixture is normally recommended, and you can buy that already pre-mixed. O'Reilly Auto Parts stocks that. You can pick it up anytime you need it, and anytime you add coolant to your vehicle, and there's a cold fill and a warm fill line on the reservoir, you should always get the 50-50 mixture and use that versus the straight stuff. And one last point. The corrosion inhibitors in the engine coolant do break down over time, and that's why you need to change it periodically. And you can look in your manufacturer's recommendations, and you can see when the manufacturer recommends. For me and my cars, I like to change the coolant every 2 years or 30,000 miles. And I will share with you, to change the coolant doesn't mean to drain the radiator and drain the block. If you were so lucky to have a petcock on the block and a petcock that you could drain it, that's just not there anymore. So you really should seek out a professional that has the machinery that changes the coolant for you. What coolant to use? Peak. Peak's parent company, Old World Industries, and I chose those because that's an independent family-owned business. And just remember that when you get the Peak antifreeze, the antifreeze and the coolants are engineered to ensure that your engine runs in hot and or cold temperatures while protecting against damaging rust and corrosion. Additives, those additive packages wear out. So when you have 30,000 miles or a couple of years on your cooling system, take it into a shop and have them to perform a coolant exchange, which means they will draw out the old and insert the new. And from me, Peak is the choice. We talked about tires. We talked about the coolant. I talked about the first of the program, the tires that I have on my car that give a noise. And they came from the car with the factory, and they still have 430 seconds of tread. So if you have a tread noise that's coming from your tires, just remember that from time to time, odd wear and abnormal wear will cause that noise. I can tell you from a personal standpoint, it's hard for me to swallow because these tires don't look as bad as they sound on my own automobile. And they came with the car from the factory, and yes, I'm going to have to buy a new set of tires when I do. I'm going to get the RT43 General tires, the Ultimax tires, because they're a great performing tire, and they're all season, and that's what I use. Okay, the new sweepstakes is out. If you'd like to think about a $250 Visa card from the Renewable Fuels Association or a Royal Purple leather lambskin jacket, and from yours truly, a $500 gas card, all you have to do is to go to carclinicsweepstakes.com. And as always, make sure that you keep an eye out on my social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Pinterest, and Instagram. And they're awesome contests and giveaways. So you can enter now at carclinicsweepstakes.com. And all you have to do is go to the site, carclinicsweepstakes.com. There's a question there like, what color is Royal Purple oil? I mean, seriously, these are not hard questions, and you just simply answer the question. That puts your name in a hat. And just as an FYI, every one of we've had 13 series. This one is Bobby Springs for free fuel ups. Bobby Springs for free fuel ups, and that's because spring is in the air or will be soon. So there you go. That's my new sweepstakes. Go to carclinicsweepstakes.com, and you can enter as many times. And there are multiple questions there. The more questions you ask, the more number of times, the higher number of times your name is in the hat. One of the things that I share with you from time to time are challenges that we had in our shop. And one of the biggest challenges that we're having during this cold spell is batteries. And just as an FYI, when a battery reaches a freezing point, the 32 degrees of coolant, not that it freezes, but it loses a lot of its power. At 0 degrees temperature, a battery has 50%, a healthy battery has 50% of its power that it had under normal operating temperatures. And what's normal? Well, anything above 60 degrees. And also, what's a detriment? When you start to cook a battery, you get above 200. High temps are really tough on batteries as well, and that's why the positive grid, which, for your information, I should have put this out as a trivia question. Which grid of either the negative or the positive grid corrodes first in a battery, and which grid really corrodes. And why is that information important? Well, why is the positive grid so important for batteries? Because the positive grid is the one that corrodes, just for you to know. Why do you have that corrosion that's outside the battery terminal? Because there's leakage of gases out of that battery. And you'll see new batteries that in 6 months start to corrode. We will, as a matter of course, use little battery wicks, and they're chemically treated wicks on the negative and the positive side of the battery post whenever we replace a battery or whenever we service a battery. And everything, no pun intended, but everything starts, as you know, with the battery. The electronic system is very important. The information that I share with you is important because when you check a battery, you don't just look at it. You ask a shop to clean the cables. Now, you have to know that when you remove the battery cables, you remove the negative side first and then the positive, and you go back with the negative side last. And remember, most importantly, next week, tune in to Bobby Likas Car Clinic right here on your favorite stations. Like us, you'll love us. Have a great week. Take care of your car.
This is Bobby Likas Car Clinic. Bobby Likas Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.